And thanks so much for being with us today and sharing your knowledge and your expertise and your experience. And
pleasure for me too. And thank you for hosting me.
If you could just start by introducing your family, your ancestors to us, and where they were and what they played and how they learned.
My family, both from the maternal and paternal side, they migrated from Afghanistan. My maternal side, which is the Lucknow lineage, they were from Jalalabad, and my pet and his cousin, they were shuttling between Kabul and Ghazni, and they were all. The Lucknow side was dealing in horses. They were horse traders, and they came to India during Aurangzeb's time, around 704, 703, and then they stayed here. The first one who came was Madar Khan from Lucknow-Gharana and Najaf Ali Khan from Shahjahanpur-Gharana. So once they came to India, they settled in places like Shahjahanpur and a small Kasbah, principality in Bulandshahr, because the Pathans were ruling in that area and they held sway in that area. So it was natural for them to settle in some places where the Pathans were there. And they carried on their work, and then the Shahjahanpur side, they were, one of them enlisted in the army, Mughal army, as a cavalry officer. His rank was Risal-e-Dar. So he was an officer of a contingent of cavalry. And later on, Niamatullah Khan from Lucknow side, he wanted to learn Indian music. He already knew how to play the Afghan Rabab, and he went to Basat Khan Sahab, a direct descendant of Tansen, from the son's side. And he asked him to teach him Indian music. And Basat Khan Sahab said, fine, but you can't play Indian music on Rabab. It has its limitation. You can play Indian music, but you can't play all the rags and all the other, like gamaks and things like that. It will be difficult for you. So you better learn some other instrument like surbahar or sitar, or whatever, veena. But Niamatullah Khan Sahab was very headstrong and adamant, and he said, I want to play something where I already know how to play rabab, and I want something like this, similar to something like this. And then he decided to come up and invent this instrument called sarod. He did away with the gut strings, the frets which the rabab had, and put and the metal and the fingerboard. He put a metal fingerboard instead of the wooden fingerboard. Changed the strings from gut strings to metal strings, and changed the tuning also. Because in rabab you can play only 1.5 octave. You can't go below knee in the lower octave, and you can't go more than ma or pa. That too is quite difficult, with some difficulty in the upper octave. So he came up with this instrument. To be very frank, sarod was already there. It existed before, right from the time of Pythagoras. And but this, not the sarod as we know it today. The sarod in Farsi, it means melody or music, or melody, some melody, not music, sorry, melody. And there are 3 types of rababs. One is a large, big size, which is all called kalan, and they used to call it sarod when they migrated to India. And the middle size rabab is called darmiana, and the small size rabab is called zilcha, which is tuned very high to F or something like that. but he did it away with, he picked up the large one and made all the modifications. All this happened, and although there are a lot of claimants for it, but all the written documents prove that it was Ni'matullah Khan Sahib. And Raja S.M. Tagore was a witness when all these changes were happening in Calcutta, in Madhya Pradesh. And Ni'matullah Khan Sahib was a court musician and Ustad of Wajid Ali Shah. So when Wajid Ali Shah was, when he came, some people say he was exiled, some people say no, he came on his own. He wanted to travel to England, present his case to Queen Victoria. But whatever, so he came down with him, with other musicians and other courtiers of Lucknow court, and they settled down in Madhya Pradesh. And all these things happened during that time. The major changes. Little changes had already been done in Lucknow when he was in Lucknow. And if you remember the book of Karamtullah Khan Sahib, Israr Karamat, he gives a sketch of Ni'matullah Khan Sahib's sarod and also the sarod which he used to play. So, so that's, and then they settled down in Calcutta, and they were shuttling between Calcutta and Lucknow. And after the demise of, before Wajid Ali Shah died, Ni'matullah Khan Sahib went to Nepal on the invitation of Rana Bir Samsher Singh. He was there in the Nepal court for 30 years. And then he came back during one of the darbars, maybe in 1902, something like that, when the darbar was held in Delhi, and he prayed there. And after that, he expired. And the descendants from that side are carrying on. They stay in Delhi. Ni'matullah Khan Sahib's son was, he had two sons, Asadullah Khan, better known as Kokab Khan, and Karamtullah Khan Sahib. Kokab Khan Sahib had three sons. Two of them were musicians. One died very young. He used to play sarod. And the younger son, the middle son, used to play sitar. His name was Waliullah Khan. And Waliullah Khan Sahib had a son called Nurullah Khan. Unfortunately, they are no more with us. And Karamtullah Khan Sahib had only one son, Ishtiyaq Khan Sahib, a very well-known sarod player. And his sons are there in Delhi. And from the Shahjahanpur side, the first one to pick up the sarod was Inayat Ali Khan Sahib, who had settled in Shahjahanpur, and he learned from Umrao Khan, another descendant of Tansen from the daughter's side. And Inayat Khan Sahib also was in Calcutta for some time, and then he went to, which is now known as Bangladesh. He, at the invitation of Maharaja of Bhawal state. And then he stayed there for some time, and then he expired there also. He taught many students there, including Bhagwan Das Sitari.
All right.
And then Inayat Khan Sahib's son was Shafayat Khan, who was a court musician of few states like Alwar, Bundi, and in his later years, he was a court musician of Junagadh. And then he came down back to Shahjahanpur and then to Lucknow, and he expired in Lucknow. And Shafayat Khan Sahib's son was Sakawat Khan, my grandfather. He learned from his father and also from Kokab Khan Sahib, who happened to be his father-in-law. So all this intermingling between the two lines of that is why it's now called Lucknow-Shahjahanpur-Gharana. And one branch of our family, it was actually Shahjahanpur, Fida Hussain Khan Sahib. He was a very well-known sarod player, and he was employed at Rampur. Rampur at what time had 1,200 musicians in the court, and Firdaus Khan Sahab was one of them. He had a son, Taj Khan. He expired when he was quite young, and that broke Firdaus Khan's heart, and he also expired after a year or two. His son expired in 1925, and Firdaus Khan Sahab expired in 1927. And Sakawat Khan Sahab was there in moving between Lucknow and Shahjahanpur and Calcutta, and later on Bhatkhande ji requested him to take up the position of professor of Marist College. Now it's called Bhatkhande Music College. Earlier it was known as Marist College. And he joined in 1926 when it all started, and he died in harness in 1955. And my father, Umar Khan, he was also employed at Bhatkhande. And then when my father moved to Calcutta, Ilyas Khan Sahab, my uncle, he took over the job as the professor, head of the department, instrumental section. And my father became the court musician of Nawab of Jalpaiguri. And he moved permanently somewhere around 1955, 56. And before that, he was shuttling between Lucknow and Calcutta, teaching the Begum, who was learning sitar and surbahar. Earlier, she was learning from Waliullah Khan Sahab, who was Kokab Khan Sahab's son, and very well-known sitar player. And then since then, we are in Calcutta, and Umar, my father, we are two brothers. My elder brother is Shahid. He stays in Lucknow. He's quite old now, 80 plus. He's given up music, and he's enjoying his retired life. He was working in Delhi, Lucknow Doordarshan. So after his retirement, he's just taking it easy. He's not keeping well also nowadays. And now I am the last of the Mohicans, as you can see. You see, according to Ni'amatullah Khan Sahab and Karamatullah Khan Sahab, he mentions it in his book, Isar-e Karamat, Naghmat Ni'amat. And he believes that the music, it all started in Greece. And Pythagoras wrote a music, article or a book or whatever you want to call it. And later on, it was translated into Arabic during the Caliphate of Mamun al-Rashid, Harun al-Rashid's successor. And it was translated by Al-Kindi. And from Al-Kindi, it came to other places, it was translated, and it was lying in Cairo library, and a fellow called Ismail got hold of it. And then somehow Ni'amatullah Khan Sahab got the book from him, and then it helped him in his writings also. I took a lot of things from there. And but yeah, it's Karamatullah Khan Sahab and Ni'amatullah Khan Sahab, they all believe that it all started in Greece during Pythagoras' time. And he names certain rags which were also common to Indian, like Darak. Darak is nothing but Deepak. Handal is Hindol. And Masak is Meg. So these rags were there during the Greece and the Arabic time, and it traveled from Greece to Arabia and to Central Asia, Iran, and from Iran it came with the Iranis, and when the Muslims came to India, it came with them. Also, this is quite controversial actually. I mean, the notes that we use, like, and the names for the notes, Saraj and Rishabh and Gandhar, they have all Sanskrit origins. And I'm sure the equivalent of Rikhab and Gandhar, there must be some name for in the Greek language or Arabic, but at the moment I can't recall the names. Karamtullah Khan Sahab and Kokab Khan Sahab had a running feud with Bhatkhande ji for 12 years. They exchanged letters and points, and Bhatkhande ji insisted that the Muslim scholars, the Muslim ustads don't refer. Yeah, so Bhatkhande ji asked Karamtullah Khan Sahab, and have you ever referred to the Sanskrit books, ancient books? And they said, why should we? Karamtullah Khan Sahab said, why should we refer to it? There is a lot of material in Persian which has been written in Arabic and other languages as well. But Kokab Khan Sahab did refer to the Sanskrit books, and he quoted, and he in his bibliography, which when he wrote a book, the manuscript is with me, and the bibliography is there. He quoted from Bengali sources, Gujarati sources, Sanskrit sources, English, and of course Persian and Arabic. All these people had settled in Rohilkhand area because the Pathans were there. Yeah. And it was closer to Delhi also, so they could go to the court, and it was easier for them. Delhi was accessible, and in those days the railways were not there, so they were actually traveling on horse carriages or bullock carts or whatever they were using in those days. And even before, there have been a lot of books on Indian music, like Sharma Ishrat and others also. Sitar, and Sitar, Vigyan, and my grandfather wrote a book. My Karamtullah Khan Sahab wrote a book. Kokab Khan Sahab wrote 2 books. One is published, Rag Parichay. It is in Bengali, and the one which he was in the process of writing before, and he couldn't finish it. So it's with me. The manuscript is with me. Someday maybe I'll.
Please finish it.
It's a tall order because there's a chapter in it where he wanted to write about contemporary musicians, and that, of course, I will not be able to write anything because I don't know what he was thinking, or who was there, and what he wanted to, whether he wanted to praise them or he wanted to just criticize them. I have no idea. So that is one chapter we have to skip. But the practical things, like where he wanted to notate few guts and things like that, that of course I can. There are a few other chapters which are left undone. I will do that as well.
We're seeing different streams and tributaries of influence in Hindustani music. And that's what I guess we're trying to bring out now. And I was wondering, is there any of that, thinking about tuning in your family, any innovations that you know of about with Niamatullah Khan Sahab of changing, he took the frets off.
Of course. You see, if you know Rabab, in Rabab, the first string is tuned to Dha, Ga, sorry. And the second string, which in Sarod it is Sa, but in Rabab it is Ni. And the third string is, of course, Pa in Rabab. And also in Sarod. And the Kharaj is, the third string is Sa, and the last string is Pa in Rabab. But in Sarod, the third string is Pa, and the last string is Sa. The Rabab has only 5 strings and only one chikari, which they call Paran.
Oh, Paran.
And Paran. So it's from there the word Paran has come. Paran. So, and there are 2 versions of Parans. One is what the Rawabis used to do with the Chikari, and another is the Paran, the instrumentalist learned a few Tarang, tabla, pakhawat, and they used to play that, especially in the Mayer tradition. So, so these things were there. And then sitar, initially sitar had only 3 strings. Later on, more strings were added. And then the tuning they changed over time. And then after the Vilayat Khan Sahib did away with one of the strings and then came up with this Gandhar Pancham sitar. And Ravi Shankar ji did away with the last Pancham. So he had also one stringless, just like Vilayat Khan Sahib. And the first Kharak Pancham sitar was used by Yusuf Ali Khan Sahib in Lucknow. In fact, Ravi Shankar ji mentions that his first sitar in his book, that the first sitar, Kharak Pancham sitar, was made by Yusuf Ali Khan Sahib in Lucknow.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So before that, sitar had one more string. Is
Yeah, they were. You see, the first string is ma, the second string was sa, and in the old days there were 2 sas. For the second string and third string were sa, fourth and fifth were pa. It was known as jodi jodi. Then the Kharat Pancham started. The third string remained a slightly thicker string than the which we are using for jodi nowadays. And then the fourth one was even thicker, so that was tuned to sa, lower scale sa. That is why it is known as Kharach Pancham. And the last string was Pancham, steel Pancham. So Ravi Shankar ji did away with the steel Pancham. He did it away, got rid of it. And the seniors in the old days, if you listen to Barkatullah Khan Sahib's recording, or even till recently, the Mushtaq Ali Khan Sahib from Calcutta, he played the Jodi Jodi sitar. 2 sas, 2 pas, and 1 chikari, 2 chikari. Initially, there was 1 chikari, and then the tarabs were added later on, and who did it? It's anybody's guess. But they were not there before, because before the sitar was in sitar 7-string sitar. Earlier there was no tarabs because they were not so much of meaned. They used to only pull 1 swar or 2 swars. Now you always 5 swar means and 6 swar means and all that. It was not there.
The instruments that were connected with the Lashkars and the militia in Balochistan and Pakistan, they all had tarab as well. The sarinda, the saroz, these instruments had things. So
saroz was never used as a martial instrument. Rabab was, because it had a large volume, and the Rabab, the Kabli Rabab, the Afghani Rabab. It's better to call it Afghani Rabab, because Kabli Rabab in Afghanistan, there are different kinds of Rabab. Kabli is one of them, Pamiri is one of them, Badakshi is one of them, Herati is another version. So there are different types of Rabab. The basic things are the same, but a little shape and style of playing and it's a little different. But the Rababs had tarabs all along. So Rabab was used as a martial instrument. And the Seni, people get confused with the Afghani Rabab and the Seni Rabab. Seni Rabab was quite a different instrument. And the inventor of a Seni Rabab, his name was Kohbar. If you read Aine Akbari, you will see that the 15 names are mentioned who were there in the court of Akbar. And the inventor of Seni Rabab, the invention is credited to a fellow called Kohbar. And then later on, Tansen ji and others took up the instrument, and Tansen taught his sons Rabab and Drupad, and his daughters and son-in-laws Veena.
You mentioned Basat Khan, sir.
Yes.
And I want to ask you about the Basat Khan, Pyar Khan, and Zafar Khan.
Yes.
So
They were descendants of Tansen, great grandsons of Tansen, yes, from Senya-Gharana, on the sun side. And Basat Khasa was in Lucknow, and then he came to Calcutta with Wajidali Shah, and he was also there in Kashi for some time, and Gidhor, and his son Muhammad Ali Khan Sahab was also there in Gidhor, and he expired in a small state called Tikari. Pyar Khan and Jafar Khan were also this instrument Sursingar.
exactly, that's what. Yeah.
Some people say it was invented by Jafar Khan Sahab. Some say it was invented by Pyar Khan Sahab. So there's a controversy, but the larger, the majority of them think it was Jafar Khan Sahab, because Bin Kishore Roy Chaudhary mentions in his book on Indian history, Indian music and Tansen, that it was Jafar Khan Sahab. But in Islamic Rahmat, Pyar Khan Sahab is credited with this invention.
Okay.
And Subhar was invented by Umrao Khan Sahab, the descendant of Tansen from the daughter's side.
Can you date when roughly the Sursingar arrived?
Sursingar, maybe in a few years here or there with the Sarod. Either the Sarod came first or the Sursingar came first. But if Pyar Khan Sahab did, as Karamatullah Khan Sahab, then it must have been at sometime in the late 40s, early 50s. So
the last question I'll ask is, can you give us an idea of how Raga is described or defined in this Nagmat Niyamat, that's Karamatullah Khan's book? What are the primary characteristics of rags that he might mention? What are the ways in which rags are identified or taught or learnt, or that sort of thing?
You see, in those times, this thought system was not there. There was, in the olden days, if you read Bharat's Natya Shastra, it had only one male. And that male was Kafi. And the rag system was also not there. It was called Murchunas. So all those rags which evolved from changing the notes. The Murchana is if you take Re and make it Sa, and then that's one Murchana, Re to Re. So the main Sa is there, but Re becomes the Sa. It's just changing of notes. So it becomes another rag. Then Ga, then Ma, and so on and so forth. So according to Bharat, only one male was there, male karta, and it was Kafi. Then Venkat Mukhi came up with 72 male kartas. 70. Then Thaat business started. But Thaat, according to Karamatullah Khan Sahab's book, Thaat is the name of the notes which you use and the tuning of the sitar, the frets that you use. Where this Thaat of Bhairav, if you change the recurve, and then it becomes Thaat of Bhairav. Thaat was never regarded as the parent rag. It all started. The first one was to do it was Maula Baksh. And
Baroda.
He came up with Baroda. He came up with 12 Thaats. Later on, Bhatkhande ji came up with 10. But before all that, there was the theory which was there. It had 6 rags and 36 ragnis. Each rag had 5 or 6 ragnis, depending on the mat. There were 4 mats: Hanumat, Kalnath mat, Shiv mat, and one more. And there were grams.
So you have to, maybe you can just unpack that for us a little bit. This is really interesting. And just because I think a lot of us won't really know too much the significance of this, but if you could be kind to us and patient with us and just maybe unpack that a little bit for what you know?
Shiv Mat and what is the Mat?
I can't tell you off the head. Give me a minute. I'll take out Kokop Khan Sahib's book and then I'll explain it to you. And
Fantastic.
all the
Absolutely, absolutely, been great.
Take out that book from there. So this rag, there were 6 main rags like Bhairo, Malkos, Deepak, Hindol, and Megh. And each rag had 5 or 6 raginis. They were called Putra, Bharja, and things like that. But that theory also got obsolete, and then this new theory has come up, the third system. Now everyone follows it. But even Bhatkhande, just a minute. This is a manuscript of Kokop Khan Sahib.
What's it called?
Johre Mosiki. This is the first page, and the drawing was done by my grandfather. Coming out, he expired in sometime, I will tell you the exact date, 7th August 1915. According to him, this is first rag was Bhairo, then Malkos, Hindol, Deepak, Sri, and Megh. And Bhairo, so Bhairo had Ramkali, and third was Gujri, then Khat, and Gandhari, and the 6th was Asabri. And Malkos had, Malkos was there, and Todi, Desi, Soha, Sugrahi, and Wasi, and so on. I mean, this is quite a voluminous thing. So,
sorry, Khan, what were the similarities between these rags?
The rags were the same. I mean, whatever he mentioned, few with differences. There are certain rags, like in the old days, Bindravani was played with just one knee. But according to Bhatkhande ji started with both the knees. And earlier it was Madmad, which had both the knees, and Brindavani had only one knee. It all started with the Indian, All India the music conference in which Bhatkhande ji hosted. He hosted 4 or 5 of them. In 1960, when he hosted it in Delhi, then he expanded this thing that Bindravani should have 2 nikhas and Manmad should have 1. So, but in our family, the seniors, let's not say in our family, the seniors, even Mahir, if you listen to Ali Akbar Khan Sahib's recording, he used only just 1 nikah for Bindravani. And if you listen
May I jump in?
Yes, please.
I just had a question regarding, because you mentioned the 6 main rags as Bhairav, Malkos, and then the Raginis. Is there a relation? I mean, it is clear that the Ragini of, you mentioned the Ramkali as Ragini of Bhairav. That kind of makes sense. But then the second one was Tori being a Ragini of Malkos. So was it a different Tori then, or is it just, what is the relation of these, like Raginis and the rags?
Nowadays, people have forgotten what is Shuddh Tori. we know as Tori, Miyagi Tori, Bilas Khani Tori, but what was the Shud Tori? These are all variations. The Shud Tori must have been there. Someone must be playing it or singing it. So he stopped that Tori.
Shud Tori, what is Shud Tori?
हाँ, Shud Tori है वो फिर कभी बात करेंगे उस पर. So it was
थोड़ी से थोड़ी बात करें.
So this is, but this was according to one mat. There were 4 mats. There were Hanumat, Kalnath mat, and Shiv mat, and
The mat is opinion.
yes, mat is there were 3 schools, you might say. So there are 4 different schools. They had different rags, also 6 rags. Some of them had different rags also.
So
And then there were grams. There were 3 grams: Madham, Saraj gram, Madham gram, and Pancham gram, and Gandhar gram. And then Gandhar gram, according to the Shastra, it is Naraji has taken it back to Vaikunt, so it is not there. So
how would you talk about or define gram?
yes, gram. When you are doing the muchna, then the gram comes into play. So when you are starting from starting from Gandhar, the ga becomes sa. Then it's the murchana ga, but the gram is known as Gandhar gram. So all those rags which are played with that scale are known as Gandhar gram rags. Then same with the Madham, and same with Nikhad and Pancham. But
So
now the name of the gram, according to Bhatkande, is something else, and it's not there. And there's then nowadays we have Vadi and Samvadi. In the old days, it was not there. It was Greh, Ansh, Nyas. So every rag had its starting point and ending point, and where you could rest. There was Ansh, Nyas, Lahak, Gamak, Lak, Dant, all those things. But nowadays, no one, they might announce it when they're playing or singing, but if you ask them to please demonstrate it to then everyone likes when they are instrumentalists, most of them, not everyone, there are thousands of knowledgeable people who are more knowledgeable than me. So they are doing it and they might be able to explain also. They don't want to do it, that's another thing. That's another story. But we will announce Thok Jhala, Ulta Jhala, Sulat Jhala, this Jhala, that Jhala. But where? What is Thok Jhala? Thok Jhala doesn't mean that you take a hammer and start hammering the wood and thoking it. It's not Thok Jhala. Thok Jhala ka kuch matlab hota hai, kuch hai usme. What is Thok Jhala? In Allah, there are so many different sections of Allah. There's a Stai, there's an Antra, there's Sanchari, there's a Bhog. So how do you play Sanchari and a Bhog? And how do you sing Sanchari and a Bhog? Nowadays, Dhrupadiyas don't even sing Antra, leave alone Sanchari and a Bhog. They just sing the Stai and they're done with. And Dhrupa, there was in Dhrupa, there was Ar, Kumar, Dugun, Tigun, Chogun.
So can you think of what would be a way in which a Ragini is differentiated from a Rag?
You see, only 6 rags which are mentioned, they are rags. The others are all Raginis, either Raginis or Putra or Putra Bharja.
Right.
So there's no difference in rendition, like a method of rendition. But
Yes. But now you see that the thing is, we don't know for certain which the Bhairo which we know today is the same Bhairo as it was before, because the placement of Shrutis have changed.
Sorry, Kansa. वो क्योंकि शारंग देव संगीत रत्नाकर I got a copy in Hindi. They said that in Bhairav the Rikhab and Pancham is Varjit.
That's what I'm saying. When you change the Shruti, then the whole texture changes. What we know as Sa today, it's not the Sa, it was Ni in the old days. Now, Tivra, there were names for each Shruti, starting from Tivra.
Raktamvari and all. So one thing, is mentioned about Gram. So, and then Gandhar. So when Gandhar Gram, the Sa is Gandhar. So the Madhyam is the one Shruti after Gandhar.
Yes.
So in Gandhar Gram, it will be.
No. It's not one Shruti after Gandhar. Gandhar has two Shrutis.
Or two Shrutis.
You see, Sa, Man, Pa have four Shrutis each. Re and Dha have three Shrutis each. And Ga and Ni have two Shrutis each. So that makes it 22 Shrutis.
Gandhar plus one Shruti, there are two Gandhar. So in Gandhagram, the Shrutis remain the same?
No, you come to the next Shruti. You see, पहले तो ये सरोज सितारे ये सब था नहीं, बीन थी, it was Veena, and Veena had 22 stars according to every Shruti. So the Sa was changing.
All right.
When you're changing the gram or your Murchana, then the Sa is changing. But now everything is fixed. It doesn't change. But how to apply it? That is the thing. If you read Bhatkande's book, he said Darbari has Komal Gandhar, and Miyake Malhar also has Komal Gandhar. So what is the difference between these two Gandhars? There is something like Tivartam, Tivartar, Komaltar, Komaltam. So which one is which? That someone has to explain. Until you go to a teacher who knows it, you won't be able to play. If just by reading the notes in Bhatkande's book, you'll not be able to do it. He himself said it. This is just for reference. For learning it, you have to go to some guru. In the book, he has mentioned that. But now for Multani, for instance, everyone is playing Nisaga. They're not playing the Gandhar. How to play the Gandhar? Let me just show it to you. See, if you're playing according to Bhatkande, you will just the notes. If you're playing Multani, and if you're doing the Alap also, but then it won't be Multani. The Gandhar, you have to play to get the right Shruti. You have to play the Gandhar. So unless and until you do that, you won't get the right Shruti. So this is what it is all about.
But Gharanas have different takes on Shrutis, no? Would you find?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. You see, if you go by Pythagoras, the tempered scale, every swar has two Shrutis. But with the Indian music system, it doesn't. Different swars have different number of Shrutis.
So in Mayha, they often say there's 66 Shrutis. I don't know where they get that from, how they count it.
There is one Pakistani vocalist, he sings in 49 Shrutis. He's 76-year-old. I don't know how.
You see, they got the terminology wrong. There are 49 Kut-tans.
Yeah.
What tans?
Kut-tan.
Means?
49 Kut-tan. 49 Kut.
Kut means what?
true or solid basic.
Basic, I mean, from each so sa to sa is 1, and then re to re, and ga to ga, and ma to ma. So if 7 into 7 is 49.
That's right. I was just thinking, and then I gave it up.
Katu sakte, I think ut or katu sakte.
Yeah. So, but the general consensus is that the 22 Shruti classification comes from a different time when different instruments played together. There may not have been a drone instrument at that time. If you're looking in the Natya Shastra, this is, and Sangeet Ratnaka, before the Tanpura was there, before a drone was used, these Shrutis were there and ensembles played together as well. But yes.
You see, the actual meaning of Shruti is to hear or to be heard. When during the Vedic periods, when they were reciting the Sama music, Sham music, or whatever you want to call it, the devotional things. That was when the Shruti, they were listening to the Vedas, and then the Shruti, that the hearing. So that is where the word Shruti comes from, to hear or to be heard. That is the literal meaning of Shruti.
And it goes back to our theme of, two different traditions or two different world views of music merging together, which is, what makes Hindustani music really interesting and complex and beautiful. But I just thought we're moving on in time. But one thing I wanted to request perhaps is, in your family, you mentioned there was a particular type of gut speciality, and I love the name of it too. Maybe you could just talk a little bit about that, and because I love food and music. So.
You see, it's known as kulfidar guts, where the astai and antra are merged together. You don't play the antra separately. The whole gut is around the astai, antra, and in some bilampat guts, you have astai, antra, sanchari, and bhog also. So, which are based on the Drupad. There are guts which are, Drut guts are also based, some are based on Drupad, some are based on Khayal, some are based on Tarana, some on Dhumri. Initially, when the first gut was composed by Ghulam Raza of Lucknow, there was no such thing as Raza Khani Baj or Masjid Khani Baj. It was, the Baj was known as Dilli Baj and Purab Baj. So Dilli Baj was what we know as Masjid Khani Baj today. It was only played in slow tempo. And the Purab Baj, which was, because it was invented in Lucknow by Ghulam Raza, came to be known as Purab. So that was Purab. Uttar, it's always known, that's why Uttar Pradesh, Purab, it was known as Purab. So Purab Baj. When he first invented this, he composed it on a thumri. Later on, other composers like Pyar Khan, Jafar Khan, Basit Khan, and some my ancestors also, and other musicians from other families, they also composed. And so my uncle learned from Yusuf Ali Khan Sahab, who belonged to the Kalpi tradition of Drupadiyas. So there, the guts were mostly kulfidars, and in Shahjahanpur also, most of the guts were kulfidars. And our Lucknow, which was known as Bulandshahr Gharana before it became Lucknow-Gharana, all the guts are very short. Astai and Andhra are separate.
So
there's a reason behind it, because they learned from Rababiyas. So there is not, they can't run around so much. And but the others were Binkas. So Umrao Khan Sahab and Binkas and Dhrupadiyas, so they composed long guts, 2.5 octaves, 3 octaves, 2 octaves, and things like that.
Oh.
Later on, people started calling these Kulfidar guts as Firoz Khani gut. I don't, my father never agreed to it. Because if you say Firoz Khani gut, then it becomes Durut. And Firoz Khan was born earlier than Masjid Khan. Firoz Khan was the father of Masjid Khan. So how can you have Durut Gat before and Bilampat Gat afterwards? The first Gat which was composed was Bilampat Gat, the Delhi Baj, during Khusro's time. Much later, not Khusro's time, but he invented the sitar. In those days, sitar, there was no Gat during Amir Khusro's time, there was no Gat as such. He invented the sitar as an accompaniment instrument, accompanying instrument, when he was singing Qawwali, Kaul, Kalbana, and Naqsh, Gul, Hawa. All this, the sitariya used to sit behind and play, accompany them, because there was no drone instrument as you just mentioned. So he was using it as a drone. And the Dhrupadiyas were using the veena, which we in common parlance call bean. They were using that as a drone. That's why Tansenji taught his daughters and son-in-laws veena. The people were very rigid in the old days. They would not pass on their family secrets to outsiders. So the Rawab and Drupad stayed with the sons, and veena went to the daughter's side. So
is my understanding right that before Amir Khusro's time, there was no Tantrakari as such in Hindustani music?
No.
No, of course the Tankari was there. It was on veena.
But drone.
No, they were just not droning it. They were playing ragas on it, and they were accompanying.
Okay, there was no gut structure.
The gut thing started much later. The first one to do it was Masjid Khan, the slow, which is also known as Delhi Baj, because they were based in Delhi. And much later, the guts came into being, and they were known as Pura Baj. But nowadays it's become very simple. They call it Masjid Khani Baj and Raza Khani Baj. But Raza Khan didn't compose all the guts. Yeah. What about other composers? Basit Khan Sahab composed Pyar Khan Sahab, Jafar Khan Sahab, and Haider Khan, and Rahim Sen, Amrit Sen. So they were also composing. Rao Khan Sahab, my ancestors, other musicians' ancestors. Fida Hussain Khan Sahab was a very prolific composer, very complicated guts. And he was such a beautiful sarod player. I mean, people still, those who have heard him, they still swear by him. But now he was awarded a gold medal at the Lucknow conference by Bhatkande. Not only by Bhatkande, by other Maharajas and Rajas.
He's mentioned a lot in the All India Music Conference proceedings, and his photograph there and description of where he played, which rags and things. He seemed to be the most famous sarod player in the 1920s by far.
Yes, him and Karantullah Khan Sahab. There were only two of them. And before that, Kokop Khan Sahab till 1915, Kokop Khan Sahab was also a very famous sarod player. And after 26, after 27, Sakhawat Khan Sahab also became very famous. Before that, he was also well known, but he came into his own after he joined Bhatkande ji.
I just curious, this when did the Chakari strings fixing the sa in one point, when did they become established? If you know.
Initially, sarod had only one chikari. If you look at the old pictures of Ni'amtullah Khan Sahab sarod, it had only one chikar. And it was tuned to the height because it was tuned just like the rabab, the Afghani rabab.
No, I was thinking on the veena, on bean, when because it wasn't set up like it is now.
No, it was not. It was not. You see, the veena, the lower, there are two chikaris. There's one at the under the neck here.
Yeah.
And there's one here.
But they're tuned to Madhisa, no?
Yes. The first one is which is they call it chikari nowadays because they don't know the actual name of that string.
Yeah. And that one string on the left-hand side, or the offside, that's quite old, I think.
Yes.
But they're set up with a 3 chikari sapasa, or whatever you do, however you set it, with a kind of like a tanpura.
Yes.
Like a built-in tanpura.
It came much later. But
it's definitely there by the time of Niamat Khan, right?
Yes, of course.
So it's probably in the 17th century.
Maybe mid 17th century or
Okay.
On that.
And so I was wondering if we could prevail upon you, and please say no if you don't feel comfortable, just to give us a taste of the kulfi gut a little bit.
It will take a little time to tune the instrument, but since it's afternoon, let me play an afternoon rag and demonstrate. Is here, and then also you don't need not to play antra because you're already going to sa. Most of the guts, like these kulfidars, they always do go to sa, and some guts which don't go to sa, those are, they have a manja and a antra also.
Okay.
So if they're not going to sa, then the upper portion is known as manja, and then you can add. Some guts start from the lower sa, so you do not have to have a antra in that, because then you can have manja in the lower octave.
How would you define manja? What is it derived from? What's the
simple gut in Zila Kafi? This gut is incidentally composed by Basat Khan.
Oh, beautiful. What's the etymology of the word manja? Is it?
Manja means something in between. Manj.
Manj.
Middle. The middle portion. Different people have different takes on it. That's my take. And in the earlier days, like Manj Khamaj, or the Manj Khamaj was not a rag as such. Manj means from the middle. So if you take the middle portion and make it sa, then it becomes Manj.
Wow. Gotcha.
So before Alauddin Khan composed Manj Khamaj, which is something like this. So you must have learned that. But in the Senias, they use Tivar Madham also in Manj Khamaj. And so this was one of the seniors.
Wow.
So
See,
you have a recording of Waliullah Khan Sahab also. You can listen to it.
fantastic.
Could I jump in with a question? Speaking of terminology, Kulfi Dargats you have demonstrated nicely, but what is the meaning of the word Kulfidar? I never got this. Is there any meaning to it?
Kulfi is like in India there is an ice cream like thing called kulfi.
Right.
And when you make it, it has a mold where you put all the ingredients, milk and whatever is there. I don't know the recipe, but when you put it, and then it sort of telescopes into the thing, and then the mold plus the whatever is inside, and then they cover it, and then they take it out, and that's why it sort of dovetails into the whole thing.
All right.
Same. So that is why it is known as kulfi. That ice cream or dessert or whatever you want to call it is known as kulfi.
Lovely, and it's specific to your family, right? Or is it in other Gharanas also? Is it there?
Everyone plays it. Everyone plays it, but they don't know the actual terminology.
All right.
So it's molded everything
Yeah,
together.
yeah. It's a pity there's no Rashmalai.
Yes. Yes, you have to come to Bengal for that.
Yeah.
Khalsa, if I can ask,
Yeah.
once you mentioned about those vocal bandishes like your father singing and all, so that also was a part of the family, and they would sing the bandishes and.
Yes, my father was a trained vocalist. He learned from Aladia Khan Sahab and Rajab Ali Khan Sahab both.
Aladia Khan Sahab. Wow.
Aladia Khan Sahab and Rajab Ali Khan Sahab. They were both rivals. They couldn't stand each other. But since both were friends with my grandfather, and they liked my father also, so they both taught him. And my father was also very close to Fayaz Khan Sahab. So there is a recording of his Darbari Alap and few pastais on YouTube. If you want, you can listen to it. You'll get a.
So how is the connection made with Aladia Khan Sahab? The connection.
Because my father, they were friends. My grandfather was friends with him, and you see all these musicians. In those days, there were very few musicians. Unlike now, sprouting everywhere. There were only few who were ruling the roost at that time. And my father was employed at All India Radio, Bombay. So he was in Bombay, and that's the time when he got a chance to learn from both of them. And my grandfather put in a word also, please teach me. Because everyone in the family knew how to sing, except my uncle Ilyas Khan Sahab and me. I don't have a voice for singing, and my uncle was also the same. But my father was a very good vocalist, and Karamtullah Khan Sahab and Kaukab Khan Sahab also. Others I don't know. Waliullah Khan Sahab, I know because I've heard my father talking about them. But before that, whether they could sing or they couldn't sing, I have no idea. But the accepted thing is any instrumentalist at least should learn a little bit of vocal. It helps.
We'd love to thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise in such an open-hearted way with us. We're all trying to find a way, trying to understand Hindustani music, and these sessions are so wonderful for us to get to see some of the more inside aspects of the music.
Glad I could use whatever I know. I'm happy to share with you.
It's fantastic. Is there anything, any last thought that you could maybe share with us about the pursuit of music? You know, anything that may be inspirational or maybe help us to deal with our own inadequacies in music? Any advice or anything that you could give us?
Listen to good people, old masters. I always tell people to do that. Yeah. If you want to learn something, listen to the old masters. Yeah. Be it vocal, be it instrumental, anything. Don't listen to this present generation, including me.
You're not present generation.
Listen to people like Fayaz Khan Sahib if you want to listen to vocal music. Then you can learn something. If you want to learn ragas, pick up ragas, how to make different patterns of improvisation in lay. He was a perfect layकार. Every word he uttered was in lay. So if you listen to him and get into your skull, then you will be a good layकार. And if you want to listen to instrumental music, there are so many old Barkatullah Khan Sahab, Ilyas Khan, Yusuf Ali Khan Sahab, Inayat Khan Sahab, Imdad Khan Sahab. You can listen to them and you pick up so many things. And then the next generation also, there's Sakawat Khan Sahab, there's Inayat Khan Sahab, and so on and so forth. Ravi Shankar Ji, Alauddin Khan Sahab. You can listen to them. You can learn from them. If you listen to Ali Akbar Khan Sahab, you can learn. But after that, you can enjoy the music. They sound very nice. But that's about all. If you want to just sit in your drawing room and listen to some good noise, and you can listen to the others. But if you want to learn something, listen to the old masters. You see, everyone has his own taste. I prefer someone else might prefer someone else. That's a different story. But as a student, you must, you can have your preference. You say, I like Vilayat Khan Sahab. Fine. You might like Rais Khan Sahab or the next generation. That's up to you. But if you want to learn, listen to the old masters.
Great. Excellent. So with that wise, those wise words and the wisdom behind them, we'd like to draw this to a close. And thank you so much for spending this hour and a half with us. It's been wonderful. So I hope to do it again sometime soon.
Pleasure.
So thank you so much.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Ustadji. It was really lovely.
Thank you. Thanks for coming along. And thanks everyone for coming along. If there's any other issues or anything you want to follow up on, we'll put the recording on the website, so that'll be available, and we'll put some other links, the links to the video of Catherine Schofield that I mentioned before, which is phenomenal, from the Ashok Ranade archives in Pune. That's where the video is housed now. And we'll just keep in touch through our website, and let's just grow our community and help each other learn as much as we can.
Have a schönes Wochenende, Matthias.
Oh, danke schön. Euch auch. Alles Gute.
Ebenfalls.
Before I finish, I want to add something. My students like Matthias and Pete Yielding, and there's one in America, Sataki and Max. And these are the ones who will carry the torch forward after I leave. I'm banking on them, and I always advise them to please work hard. Manish Bhai has just started and he's shaping up well. So let's hope he'll carry on and work a little harder than he's doing now. I always tell them, no.
I'm getting old.
No one gets older. You can't be older than me. I'm still practicing. So.
Thank you.
And it's so great learning from you, because we also have access to all the recordings of your ancestors, and you saying now listen to the old masters. It's a very nice addition to learning from you, listening to your father, uncle, grandfather, and other old masters.
I'm so happy that you're doing it.
Excellent. So
and all those who are here present, in case you want to know something, please feel free to drop me a line on WhatsApp or on the Messenger or whatever. And if you are not on my friend list, you can ask Manish Bhai or to Adrian to forward it to me, and I'll be very happy to answer whatever queries you have.
Look, we just don't want to go. That's the problem. But we're going to have dinner, because it's what time is it? 10 o'clock night. 9:30.
We should do these kind of things more often.
Absolutely. So we'll do this. Is only our second session so far, and so we're open to it, and we'll do it as often as possible, as often as you allow us, basically.
Yeah. As long as I'm in Calcutta, there's no problem. Once I might be traveling, so.
And hopefully we'll get you here soon in Melbourne as well.
Good, please.
Okay, so finally, we'll after this extended farewell, we'll say so long, farewell, mulakat hogi. Thank you.
Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.